Ready? Call to order the October 20th, 2021 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. We'll start with introductions, please. Nick?
I'm Nick Codner, the building inspector and zoning administrator.
Laura Gandy, Associate Planner.
Irene Macarelli, alternate member.
Brendan O'Brien, voting member.
Neil Dunn, voting member.
Jackie Bernard, voting member.
Suzanne Brunel, voting member.
Mitch Fike, alternate member. Joe Baradino, voting member.
As far as meeting procedures, the clerk, Brendan, will read the case into the record. The applicant will make their presentation. After that, the board will address the applicant with any questions or concerns or looking for clarity. The applicant will have a chance to respond to them, obviously. After that, we'll go out and see if anybody's in favor of the request in the crowd. If you get up to speak, please come to a microphone and state your name and address. After that, all discussions come through the board. If someone in the audience has a question, it's not to be addressed to the applicant. It all comes through the board. After that, we'll go out for anybody who's opposed to the variance or whatever the case is, or having questions. We'll come back to the board. The board will finish up. At some point, we'll go into deliberations. Once we go into deliberations, the open public input is closed. Occasionally, we come out of deliberations for clarity, so it's not that you have to leave or anything. You obviously can still stay here. If you have any cell phones, if you turn them off or put them on vibrate, that would appreciate that. And if you're interested in staying around for the decision, you may, or you can call the planning board office in the morning. Short of that, I think we'll go to the minutes from last month.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from our meeting on, what was the date? September 15th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Report from the town council liaison?
I have nothing to report.
Regional impact determination?
I have three for you this evening. Case number 10-20-2021-1, request for three variances from LZO 7.8.B.1 to alter an existing non-conforming sign without losing its pre-existing status. 7.6.D.3.B.2 to allow three wall signs where only two are permitted, and LZO 7.6.D.3.B.1 to allow 75.78 square foot of signage for wall signs where only 50 square feet are allowed. 66 Nashua Road, map 7, lot 40-4, zone C1, Midwest Convenience Store Sunoco applicant, and the Matarazzo Family Trust is the owner. Case number 10-2021-2, request for a variance from LZO 4.2.1.3.C.2 to encroach 6.5 feet into the side setback for the construction of a two-story garage, 23 Mammoth Road, map 1, lot 56-1, zoned AR1. Philippe and Kirsten Figurato, owners and applicants. Case number 10-2021-3, request for a variance from LZO 7.6.3.B.1 for a 50 square foot wall sign where only 40 square feet are allowed. For Orchard View Drive, map 7, lot 40-2, zone C1. Matthew Goyette, applicant, and Vernco Apple LLC owner. Staff recommends that the board find that these projects are not developments of regional impact, as they do not meet any of the criteria set forth by the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the determination of no regional impact.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. One thing I failed to note, the board does reserve the right, if the caseload goes late tonight, to continue this meeting till November 4th. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. So, anyway, first case.
So I have to recuse myself from the first two cases.
I do as well.
Okay, in the first two cases, we'll appoint Irene and Mitch as voting members. Who would like to be the clerk?
I get to be the clerk. I don't like being the clerk.
You can do it.
Come on, Mitch. Thanks, Mitch.
All right. I'm getting the
And then I'll fill out the paperwork.
clerk. Okay. Let's see. All right, so the first case is case number 07-21-2021-2, a request, is this 2 or 1? Hold on. Okay. A request for a variance from LZO 4.3.3.b to reduce the required 33% green landscaping area to 11% with the addition of a 8-foot by 12-foot extension to the existing patio, 103 Nashua Road, map 6, lot 35-17, zone C1, Rivard Pizza LLC owner, and Renegades Pub North applicant. And we do have previous zoning. Do you want me to read through them all?
Did we do this reading already?
I think we did when the first was called.
Therefore, we can skip it if there's no objection from anybody on the board? No objection? Okay. And are you going to want both cases together, or are you handling them separately?
Well, they are separate variances, Mr. Chair, but whatever pleases the board.
We can go separately. We'll start with the first one then. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And who'll be presenting?
That would be I. My name is Chris Drescher, attorney with Cronin, Bisson, and Zielinski in Manchester, New Hampshire. Sitting with me is Greg Ryan. He is one of the owners of the Renegades Pub. So at issue, as was mentioned, is a 30 by 50-foot patio area that has been in existence since the building was built. My client added an extension of about 8 by 12 feet, a concrete floor with a wall that's about 2 to 3 feet high, abutting the sidewalk parking area. In doing so, they reduced the required green buffer area by about 1%. Your ordinance, section 4.3.3B, requires that there be at least 33% of what I'll just call a green area that should contain some vegetation, et cetera. Now, notably, the property at issue is already pre-existing non-conforming. The green area was already well deficient of that 33%. Our engineer took an estimated guess at that, we were about, 12% green buffer, and by putting this patio extension in with the wall, has reduced that to about 11%. Now, we're the first to admit that we're here to right a wrong. This is an after-the-fact variance. They coulda, shoulda, woulda come to you first and failed to do so. So we're here to hopefully rectify that situation and be approved and be sent off to planning and work with Mr. Codner or what else needs to be done to fix the situation. And final point as to this, neither this project nor the one relative to the second variance that we'll discuss after the fact will be adding any additional seats to this restaurant. So there's no change to the amount of patronage or the head count or the certificate of occupancy allowance, et cetera. And so with that note, the variance elements. To this variance will not be contrary to the public interest because granting the variance will not unduly violate the ordinance's objectives. Important to note that this test is in the negative. It is in that the relief does not need to be in the public interest, but rather not contrary to the public interest. That said, here is what has been built. We would contend is both an improvement, both aesthetically and as matters of safety. The objective of the ordinance would be to, one, require the aesthetically pleasing, greenery, and two, to provide a safety buffer between the building and the parking area. So briefly as to aesthetics, I mean, if you want to compare the before and after pictures, which you've been provided there, I see they're up on the screen. I have paper copies if anybody would like. If you compare those before and after pictures, we would contend that this is an improvement because what was there before was just a bit of gravel with some, I'll say some poorly attended to rhododendron bushes. Now, my client has represented to me that if the board, we're lucky enough to be approved, you would like to entertain any kind of condition that they plant more trees or bushes, they'll be happy to do that. As for safety, again, there was not much there before with respect to any kind of, stoppage, I'll say, between the parking area and that patio, which is really why, and they fully recognize the need for that safety, and that's part of their cause for putting this in. So the wall was put in there. It's sound. It enhances the safety. Mr. Brian Johnson, who works for your fire department, has indicated to my clients that he, feels that this is an improvement to the safety as well. And I'll go on record as saying that Mr. Johnson did give us permission to go ahead and drop his name. As far as the neighborhood, we don't think this will cause any alteration to the neighborhood. It's a restaurant next to another restaurant. It's commercially zoned, and frankly, now somewhat safer than it was before. Prong number 2, variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, and granting will not unduly violate the ordinance's objectives. Pretty much the same reasoning as the first prong, as is often the case with these. The ordinance's objectives are ones of aesthetic and safety, and for the reasons that I've already stated under prong 1, we feel the patio extension and wall serves to enhance both those aesthetics and safety. Prong number 3, substantial justice will be done by granting the variance. Again, this is a commercial zone, and this is a restaurant. Patios are regular fixtures for restaurants, and certainly more desired ones. And now, frankly, more than ever, in light of the pandemic that's the gorilla in all of our lives, an open-air space is certainly very desirable, and frankly, desirable with or without COVID, certainly in pleasant weather. The public stands to gain from this open area. My client stands to gain from this open area. The public stands to gain nothing from a denial, except maybe the loss of a nice option for an open-air space to go hang out. Prong 4, values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. Again, if you compare the before and after pictures, we contend this is an improvement. It's already a commercial zone, and we would argue that this is an enhancement of the existing structure. Nothing is being added that expands the footprint of the building, and no property values we would contend would be diminished, if anything. Perhaps surrounding properties would even stand to benefit from these improvements. And finally, the fifth prong being hardship. Special conditions. The special conditions for this lot is pre-existing nonconformity. The building was already nonconforming to begin with. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to the property because, the purpose of the ordinance, again, is one of aesthetics and safety, greenery, and a safety buffer. Here, we would contend that we've enhanced the public purposes of the ordinance. We have not changed anything significant about this property. Thus, if you grant the relief as requested here, the relief would not frustrate the purpose of your ordinance. Indeed, in fact, we would argue it enhances and helps, frankly. The proposed use is reasonable. This is a minimal enhancement of an already existing patio. Patios are synonymous with restaurants. Demand for open-air space for restaurants is high. The use is reasonable. And the final point I would like to make here is that this is no real expansion of the non-conforming use. I know it's always a concern for ZBAs, and I'm very sensitive to that fact that you're trying not to add non-conformity on top of non-conformity. But again, this is a very minimal change, arguably nothing more than an enhancement of what was already there.
Questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do. The before pictures that we have in our packet. So where the rhododendrons, where the rhododendrons are, that plastic walls, do those come down and people sit in there when it's
They do.
summertime?
The plastic walls are actually the next variance. But yes, they retract up and down.
Okay, so the before pictures allowed patrons, instead of going through your door, they could go through that parking area and just go right through into that open area without, when you take them down, when those walls retract. So they had easy access. Whereas now, how high is the wall?
About 2 to 3 feet, would you say?
So now it also gives buffer so someone has to come through your front door now, rather than just going right into that patio area.
Correct.
Okay, so it's also having another purpose to take your.
Crowd control, yeah, sure,
your
traffic,
crowd and-
crowd traffic, yeah,
And allowing them to go properly into the establishment.
correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood the walls.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the board?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Going back to the walls, the plastic walls. Are you gonna allow seating out there? Because it looks like you got enough room for about 3 tables.
There are no additional seating. I believe there might be stools in this picture, but they're not out there. There's just high tops, right?
Can I ask, are you talking about on the
No,
newly
outside on
created,
yeah, where the
newly
wall is.
created patio?
Yeah, where the wall is.
Yeah, so really, it was just for space, just to be able to spread out the number of seats that we have. You know, the COVID mess we're all been living with, so.
Okay, no, well, I'm looking at safety-wise, because now if you bring tables out there with the traffic coming in, someone mistakens the gas for the brake and
Yeah.
goes through that wall.
Sure, absolutely. And before, we had nothing, there was literally, I think if you go to the picture, there was one stone
Yeah.
on the ground and, you know, the wooden fence. And that's kind of where Brian's feedback came in as we've, in his words, was life safety has improved pretty substantially.
Correct.
By
Okay.
having the wall.
So no tables are gonna be out there, there's gonna be no congregating out on that patio, on the brick, on the wall.
No, I don't think I'm sorry, I don't think we're on the same page.
So he's asking, if I may, he's asking if, on the patio here,
Yeah.
what kind of, will there be people?
We've talked about potentially having somebody out there, you know, with a guitar. We've talked about maybe being able to have a waiting area, you know, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, yes, we would like to use it. We would like to be able to spread out the people that we have on our patio and give people that comfortability of space and open air and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so then again, it brings back to public safety. If a car goes through that wall is not gonna stop a car if they can't get through it, so you're gonna have injured people.
It would be a lot higher degree of safety than what
I
was.
would contend that it
previous.
was, that it's still safer than what was there. There was nothing to stop the car.
But nobody was out there.
Well, there was nothing but a bush, but between that and then the folks standing, you know, on the other side of that plastic barrier. But, you know, we could certainly talk, you know, if you condition that kind of discussion for planning, we can talk about occupancy of that space.
When was the addition built? Because you're saying this was a pre-existing patio, but it seems to me like the building that's covering the pre-existing patio was fairly recent. When was that built?
When was it built? I don't know.
The patio itself?
Well, you
Oh,
had
no,
the
the
patio, but
building
like
that's-
the roof above it.
Nick, do you remember when we pulled that permit,
Yep.
from a timeline perspective?
You applied for the permit September 1st, 2020. It was granted roof only.
We did the work
Permit was
in,
permitted, was granted on
yeah,
9/22.
October, November of 20.
So the patio was underneath it already, or the non-conforming patio, and would that actually be considered non-conforming into the green space? I'm confused because the application says 33% to 11. You're talking 12 to 11 on a patio that I'm not sure.
I mean, I could be wrong, but my understanding was the floor of the patio has always been there.
the concrete patio.
Yes. That was there as Cafe Teresa.
So when the permits were pulled for the building addition, that wasn't looked at or addressed or a concern?
It went before the planning board, and they spoke about whether to allow the roof to be put over the patio. And at that time, Mrs. Champa made note that they shouldn't expand past the patio. And Rich Canuel granted them a permit to put a roof over the existing patio, roof only. You know,
So why the discrepancy between 33% and 11%? Because
That was my understanding, that's what we were starting with, was around 12% of vegetation. I don't think there was ever 33% vegetation around the building to begin with.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. So, 'cause I think we kept going in different places. Before you built the wall, there was a patio. People could stand out there, right? Like, there were people out there maybe in the evening on the patio, or no?
On the previous concrete
Right.
patio, yes.
And the intent is, now that you've got a wall as well, is similar, like you're gonna.
Sure.
people-
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought, okay. That's it.
Mr. Chair, I have one question. Nick, the height of the wall, is there anything you look at for safety on how high walls of that nature?
No, we were informed by Brian that that was being built after the fact. And when we went out there, we told them, well, we couldn't tell them stop, they were just finishing. And we told them that they were gonna have to come before you guys because they weren't allowed to expand the patio. So there hasn't been any inspections done on safety on that, not until if they were allowed permission to keep it.
And if permission is granted, is there a height requirement at that point?
I wouldn't think so for that wall, but they may be required to put bollocks or some kind of fencing in front of it for protection from cars.
That's what I was thinking, like a guardrail or something,
Yes,
to stop the impact.
yep.
And so that would be reviewed by the planning board if this was approved, or?
They can't even go before the planning board for site plan without having a variance for this.
Okay.
Well, my thought is it's all been done, so what, is there really a site plan to be evaluated, or that, I
Oh,
guess I'm
yeah.
looking for
Yeah.
clarity with that.
No, they're not even close to compliance with site plan regulations. They're way out. And they were told that if they expanded, that they were going to have to bring their site plan up to date. And they can't do it while there are violations.
So if we go back to the pre-existing pad,
Yeah?
if they hadn't gone past that, then they wouldn't be in front of the planning board either?
If they expand their use any, then they have to go for a site plan. They have to bring the site plan into compliance.
Right, well, so I'm looking to see what the trigger is, this little small patio addition, or the fact that they covered it and now they actually do have room for more occupancy, I would think.
Well, you're coming into the next variance they're requesting now when you're talking about that.
Right, but in the big picture, this all goes together. If this one doesn't pass, then what happens to the next one? So I'm just trying to get the clear picture on, first of all, it's bizarre that it gets to this point and to the zoning board at these points. But I understand stuff happens and we don't know about it, and like they've admitted, that was their fault. But we seem to see a lot of that lately. So they would have been under planning board purview without this intrusion of this, the one we're talking about right now?
When they came for pre-construction meetings, they were advised that they're not even close to having enough parking. And that if they were to expand in any way, then that would trigger having to go and bring their site plan up to compliance.
So again, the idea, Mr. Chair, is that we seek permission with these two variances, and then we're off to site plan review and work with planning board, work with Nick.
No, and I understand that. What I don't care for is the fact that it's always after the fact. And sounds like you were made aware of this back when the cover was put over it. I'm just trying to get to the whole story. And 2020 wasn't that long ago to put up the roof and the addition. So to me, it just seems strange. So, anything else from the board? Anybody in the audience in favor would like to speak?
I have some letters to read
Or favor, against?
in favor.
Okay.
All right, there's 7 letters, they're all the same, so I guess I'll read one, and then I'll read the people who they're from. The letter of support for Renegades Pub. To who it may concern, I write this letter to advocate my support in favor of Londonderry ZBA granting the 2 variances sought by Renegades Pub. The owners, operators of this establishment are hardworking members of this community and have a successful business that generates jobs and supports the local economy. Not only are the owners known for giving back to this wonderful community in many different avenues, but they have transformed a tired business into a thriving location. As the property owner, I am glad to have the Renegades team, and together we will continue to reinvest in the property. What Renegade is asking for from the ZBA will enhance the property, help a local business, and benefit people of the community with a convenient and popular source of food and drink. What they are asking for helps them and hurts no one. I do implore the ZBA to kindly grant these 2 variances and help a good business thrive and grow at a time when so many businesses are struggling as a result of the obstacles that we have dealt with, indeed are still dealing with from the events of this past year and a half. I do thank you for your care and attention in this matter. Very truly yours, Robert Rivard, property owner, 103 Nashua Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire. I will note that the letters do vary a little bit, so I don't know if I need to read the variation. If you want me to, I will.
They're in the record, they can be
I think
found.
you did them last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other ones are signed by Christopher George, Mr. Steer Meats, Sandra Vadrui, 3 Mohawk Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Joseph LaRose, 8 Mohawk Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Elizabeth Connors, 3 Mohawk Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Jen Krieger, 3 Mohawk Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. Gina Leggett, 1 Button Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. That's all of them.
So we covered the possible in favor. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak that's opposed or with questions? Seeing none, we'll come back to the board. Do you have any letters opposing?
I did not see any.
Well, just checking.
No, it's fair.
Back to the board.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question. You stated in your presentation to us that you're not going to be adding any more occupant seats to your establishment? You're going to be keeping them as they are?
Yeah, they have to abide by a liquor license and so many people, so it's meant to be a standing room.
Okay.
Just kind of hang out, and there's some high tops and, chat, talk to your friends.
Okay. So that area, is there a solid wall and then it goes into like a restaurant part?
Yes.
Okay. But food and drink and socialization happens on that patio part?
To an extent, right, there's
Where you can see the tables and chairs.
high
Yeah.
tops, so there's.
Yeah, so,
there's some-
and you can, okay. So the restaurant part was already pre-existing, non-conforming pre-existing,
Correct.
and the roof was then granted to go on, and then the walls later, which is in our other variants that we'll review. But other than that, the restaurant itself, what you serve and everything that you do is still exactly the same as it was before you put the roof on?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't you guys start with a tent first, right?
We had a tent
For
when
COVID, for
COVID started,
COVID
yeah.
reason, right.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was a tough process. Beyond the exorbitant expense of the tent, we ended up purchasing jersey barriers for safety
Yeah.
and kind of security around it. Temp lighting, emergency lighting at the exits of the tent. It was clunky. There's ropes and strapping. It was.
And I know, I mean,
was tough.
this basically came about because of COVID. Started off because of COVID, right?
The outside?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So it's basically, we're still in COVID threat and,
There's
I
a
mean, I'm
large-
just
there's a large
thinking
part
like
of
how you thought on
There's
how
a
to do
large part of
this.
the population that's still,
Correct.
pick a side, left to right, blue, red, whatever, There's still a lot of people that come in and they go, oh, seating's full outside, we'll take off, we'll catch you next time. you know, and it's real. It affects us, you know, it affects our business, it affects everybody who works for us, for sure.
That's it for me.
So Laura or Nick, maybe you can help me with this. If the planning board doesn't find enough parking, because I mean, essentially this does add additional occupancy. I don't know if you're counting chairs only as occupancy, but more people into the space, then this variance would still stand? Or they wouldn't get the plan? What would be the outcome of that scenario? And I'm not saying trying to put you on the spot, I'm trying to better understand it all.
The patio itself wouldn't add to parking, the outdoor patio that they added,
Right.
because that truly is outdoors. And that doesn't add for parking in the calculations.
But because they put the roof on,
That's
Yep.
what the next variance is gonna be about.
And these parking spots also handle Domino's there or something? Is there a Domino's there?
There is, yeah. And then the one on the end was the kitchen bath, which is vacant. It's been vacant for quite a while.
Quite a while, yeah.
Yeah, she moved out a long time ago, a year or so, maybe.
in one of your points, you made the point that restaurants often have patios and it's good for business and all that, but the presumption would be that they comply with setbacks and green space. So how do I get past that statement as an argument for,
Well,
I think
that's-
it's point two?
Well, I mean, that's why we're here for relief. Yeah, I mean, that's the fact.
After the fact with encroaching even further into it, okay.
You know, and I will say, sorry to cut you off. I will say, we took over the Cafe Teresa space 3.5 years ago. It was, with all due respect to them, they were in town for a long time, but it was tired. It was run down. The kitchen was
Rough.
disrepair, thank you, yes, rough. The patio itself, was prison yard-esque. It was not very appealing. We've continued to improve the property with the landlord that we have a great relationship with. We get along very well. Get along well with everybody in town. We've got another business in town and got a pretty decent rapport and look to continue that. But this was for aesthetics, for safety, for spacing. We understand our liquor license very well. We can't add seats. That's not gray, that's black and white. So, we're kind of hoping, to move past this. We understand we don't bat 1,000. I don't know too many people who do. And tell us what to do and we'll move forward.
Mr. Chair, I have 2 questions. So the green space that was removed is what we're seeing here, nothing
Correct.
else?
Yeah. The stone, the one layer of pavers and the beautiful rhododendrons.
And the second question, so, because we've had some conversation about the small wall, was there anything done to see if that added safety to people on the patio? I mean, I understand you're open to making other changes if we recommend the same, but did anybody say, well, I know that you have a quote from the fire chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, did anyone look at that and say, this can handle a car or something, or was that just? It
no.
just feels like maybe, going slow. I know.
Yeah. No, like, drive versus reverse type of scenario, no, but it would certainly be better than what was there.
Which was nothing.
I guess there would be the option of, to your comment of, I don't know if we would aesthetically love a guardrail, no offense, but maybe we could, you could put bollards in the wall and put them, you could secure it and strengthen it up without making it,
I just said
you
guardrail
just
for
threw it
the
out there.
safety factor,
Yeah.
Yeah, because there could be a lot to blend it in with the
Yeah,
front.
and make it
Stronger.
cohesive
Yeah.
with the look and stuff, yeah.
And again, condition any approval on making sure that we comply with whatever site plan would require for that.
I don't think we need to condition that. They'd have to comply with the site plan, wouldn't they?
Probably, yes, but just in case it
Well-
made you feel better.
If the board wanted to put conditions about safety, they can do that, and that would, then when they go to the planning board, it would be reviewed by the fire department, and Brian Johnson would put additional safety requirements if he thought that was necessary. So if you do want to put conditions upon safety, I would also just give room for Brian to weigh in as well.
Anything else from the board? We'll go into deliberation on this one. Thank you. You have the voting sheet, Ms. Jackie?
I do not, but I will soon.
Any general discussion, or you want to go to the 5 points?
Well, I just wanted to put it out here, when there was permission granted for a lot of tents for all these different restaurants. I sat in a few of those tents, and it really wasn't that safe to speak of, because it was in a parking lot. I didn't notice when they had the tent out there, but I can only envision the tent prior to the roof and just having rhododendrons there and people trying to get in and out. And that's a tight parking lot anyways. It easily becomes congested. And then getting out onto the street and 102 and all of those nice, wonderful things. But the granting of all of these different tents so that people could stay in business and try to survive through all of this, they went a step beyond, I think, for trying to do something on their own for safety. I'm not saying technically that it's right, because you got to come before us. They're here now, and they're trying to do the right thing. How they were operating before was probably not the safest, but they were allowed to do so. And everything that they've presented here indicates, to me anyways, that they still want to do what's right, and that they'll work with the planning board to make the best out of this situation for patron safety. We've had cases that have come before us before, that things are done, excuse me, after the fact, and it's sort of blatant. And I don't get that sense here, because it's a unique situation. They're a restaurant, it's COVID, and they're still trying to survive, and they're just trying to do the right thing now. Because we're still in the COVID mentality, and people want to feel safe. They want to feel safe, but they should be safe if they choose to go out and eat at these places. And I just wanted to put that out there, because we get so much thrown at us, and we have a lot of after the facts, and it's done so, and they know that they should have been here.
That's the big word. It's done.
It's done.
So the hardship case always comes up, and it seems to be a lot of people that come before us do it and claim hardship.
Well, my thought on that is the pandemic is tough on all kinds of businesses, not just restaurants, every kind of business, and maybe particularly restaurants, but a temporary allowance shouldn't be mistaken as a permanent one, is my concern. And what's there now, they were already in a rough spot, but they put the roof on, and they would have needed to kind of go to the planning board anyway. And now there's not really any room to put much of anything else, because they've intruded even more into near the parking lot. That was my first thought when I looked at that, when I drove through there months and months ago, was that now there's not even any room for anybody to really walk in front of the cars, which would have been a sidewalk. If you looked at the original building, there would have been some space. So I don't know. It just really is. I understand the argument for the COVID thing and temporary patios, but they were supposed to be a temporary fix that obviously might not go away for quite a while, but that doesn't.
And Mr. Chairman, how long have we been in session face-to-face, or even on Zoom? We never stopped, correct? And this was done in September of
2020, yep.
Yeah, the whole 12 months.
Yeah, but they were
tent.
granted the roof.
When they had come here before this. We've continued this a few months, or they've continued it a few months.
Right, because they were granted the roof. And the next variance that we're gonna talk about is the walls.
Those, yeah, the plastic ones. I just want to say something. Jackie, I tend to agree to some extent with you. Like, I try very hard in these to I don't blame anybody for other people doing the same thing, because it's not their fault. They have nothing to do with that. And I try to then accept the fact that if we say no, you didn't come before, you would have saved the expense, and you didn't. So I try to just divorce myself of that, but I also try to be objective. If they came before, how would I feel about it? And I always find that tough, but it's the balance that we have to do. And so I agree, there's a tough time, I agree to some extent, but I try to look at these and not hold anyone accountable. We do get a lot of those cases that people come after the fact, I understand that.
Oh, yeah.
Any other general discussion, 5 points?
One other thing, I guess it's the first 2 points. So I guess we can talk about it as we go through the 5 points, because, the first two, when I looked at the argument, they were pretty much the same. And safety's in there, and I didn't quite follow the chat we were having, because I do think it's clearly an issue. Assuming we went toward approving the variance, I think safety is something we want to somehow address, whether it's just toward the planning or not, but
We can put that in though, can
Oh, I
we?
don't,
As a stipulation?
but how would we do it? Sometimes we put in very specific data. Would we just recommend that the planning board?
I think what Laura had recommended is that we put in there our concerns about this safety and look for some kind of, I don't want to say remediation, because you're never going to really probably get it, but make it a deeper investigation by the fire department or the building department, whatever would be, or the planning board that normally would require some kind of,
So if the board wants specific things done to address their safety concerns, you can make that a condition. But I was saying, when you do that, just in the wording, just make sure you recognize that Brian Johnson and the fire department will be weighing in as well. But if the board has its heart set on saying, we want certain things done to address safety, you absolutely can do that. But also just recognize that we want to give leeway to for Brian Johnson to weigh in as well for when it goes to the planning board.
well, I think he's weighed in that that's safer than it would be, so we don't know if he would do anything additional at this point. But if we were that concerned, then
But once they're done here, they will go to the planning board. They'll file what's called a design review application. That design review application is circulated to all the departments in town, and one of that will be the fire department. So that's where we get the official weigh-in from the fire department as to what their concerns are.
No, I realize that part of it. I'm saying he's already weighed in and supposedly given permission to say that it was safe. That's all.
I
That's
would,
as presented tonight.
no, I understand that, but I mean, it's officially, documented when it goes through the planning board process.
Just completely, my PC went to sleep here. Can you give me something with the password so I can get back?
I did.
Oh, okay.
That's the password.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
I think is,
5 points?
if they are granted, that they'll do anything they can to make sure it's done.
Continue with the 5 points then? We good?
Nick, the 33% green landscaping, the bushes that were there, did that actually constitute that 33%? Because I don't ever remember that whole mall having any green, really.
Well, the green is also for permeable surface too.
Yeah.
It was permeable before, permeable. It's not so permeable now.
So that green space, like off to the side when you first pull in,
Yeah.
so that's part of that 33%
I
was
have-
on the side. That's the only green space I can think of.
I have the existing site plan for that, if you want to see it.
Please. Yeah, please.
keep it here for the next. So, this is where they put it. This is all asphalt.
So they,
There isn't a lot.
I was gonna say, I don't recall. So this is still in here? All of
Yeah.
this stuff?
That is there, yeah.
And that's hiding their refrigeration units? Okay.
so they never had the 33, so hence the
No.
non-conforming.
No, it was never in conformance.
It was never in conformance, okay.
All right, one of those.
Okay,
Why don't you save this for the next case?
you got it. Thank you.
We good for the 5 points?
We are?
We good to go?
Yes.
Okay. Granting the variance would or would not be contrary to the public interest because?
Gotta get my cheat.
I think it would not be. I think the change to the property is not substantial. Certainly improvement to see. The safety issue would be something I would like to address, otherwise I'd feel a little less comfortable saying that. Otherwise I think it changes the character of the neighborhood. If anything, it improves it to some extent. And, you know, it's already non-conforming, so I don't see any reason. So,
I agree with all that.
I agree as well.
I guess the only thing, getting back to the safety, is the fact that if that hadn't been extended, that they could have been put more safety barriers there, because it's already very close without this little patio in there, so. I guess,
Would not.
Can you have one would not or would?
I'm thinking it would, because I think they're gonna have trouble doing anything else, but that's fine, it's the,
Okay,
it's
so
the,
we have,
it's the overall,
okay, so we have 3, 4 would not. The spirit of the ordinance would or would not be observed?
It's got that safety involved.
Although, was the safety, do you think, worse before? See, to me, I mean, it gives us, you know, I would argue we can try to address the safety, but I'm not sure it made it any worse than it was. Well, you might know better
No,
than me.
yeah.
Well, before there was nothing there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that throwing, you know, stones, if something were to happen, is better, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, even as a patio without a roof, just the patio being there with no, from the parking, it just, you could just plow right in there.
Safety's the big thing for me.
Yeah, I'm willing to say it is observed, again, provided we do something. In terms
We
of
address it at
addressing
the end, yeah, we can
That's
do
my
that.
perspective.
Yeah, if we want to do it that way. Because the health and welfare is not the issue, it's the safety.
I think you're
So if
right.
we can address it by the end, in the end of it, I have no, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it would lie at the end for our comments or.
So it would be
Irene?
observed.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
yeah, no.
Okay, so we have 4 would not, would be observed. And again, it's the same answer as the first, would not alter the character. This is non-conforming. And safety. You wanted to list safety as being observed?
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the answer is. Do you want to try to get through the 5, and if we
Okay, and then we can go
there,
back to
then-
2.
then
All
we
right.
might as well go back to
Granting
1
the
and-
variance would or would not do substantial justice because.
See, I think even, this is one of those where you have to look at it with, as if it weren't built. I still think, even if it weren't built, the gain to the applicant is greater than the loss to the public. You could argue, I guess, a safety issue again. But I think here, again, if we address the safety, we're probably better off.
Well, it almost leads me to say, I can't believe that a patio was allowed to be out there anyways, the way that it was set up.
Yeah, and it may have been, and if it weren't for when we went through the past year and a half, it never would have, we don't know. I mean, there were a lot of places that there were patios that I didn't quite think made a whole lot of sense.
Right, and you say, how safe is it? So granting the variance would or would not do substantial justice?
I would say would.
Would.
I say would.
Yeah, I'm with it.
Wouldn't that,
Okay. So the benefit to the applicant should not be outweighed by harm to the general public.
And again, I always look at it like they had the patio already, before they put the wall up. If we address the safety, we've done what we need to do, I think.
could we have addressed it better without it then?
Don't know if it would, if they just tore down that wall and.
Well, it gets in back to the bigger picture of why it even got this far, but. yeah.
For the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties would or would not be diminished.
Can we build them there?
Would not,
Would not.
Would not. Reasoning improvement to the property. I mean, we didn't really have,
I think that's right. It's a commercial area. It's actually, it's a nicer look. It brings more business. It helps other businesses in the area. I mean, it's a lot.
owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. Denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because there is or is not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because.
Mouthful. I mean, most of the businesses in the town are, and I don't think, I'm sure, most of the businesses in the town are further back from the road than plazas. This is really right up there. This corner lot, it is kind of different.
Oh, it's,
Oh, that's totally unique.
it's totally unique, non-conforming. There's a whole bunch of problems with that whole strip.
It is unique. I think they wouldn't have this problem if they were in one of the plazas, per se. I mean, say the use is certainly reasonable to have a patio.
So there
well,
is.
part 2 is a reasonable use, but again, how, when you're already in a non-conforming property and you're way below what is the current ordinance and then you go and egregiously step into it more, I don't know where, I mean, yes, it's a different lot, but there's not a whole lot, I mean, across the street, they're regular lots. I don't know, so you just, because it's a different lot and there's no real hardship other than they wanted to get bigger. When we seem to do this, we tend to put more stuff on the property than it's really designed to allow, irregardless of the shape. To me, I don't understand that as being a hardship.
But they have one other hard stop. Their liquor license dictates how many patrons they can have within that footprint. So they have a higher being called to regulate what they can and cannot have in there.
Well, I don't know what that regulation is, but if you're putting more people closer to the cars in the street, and again, it would get back to a safety thing. Again, just more encroachment on a non-conforming property. I don't know, so there is no greater occupancy, then what's the real gain for putting it in? More space and getting people closer to perhaps an unsafe area, but
Or to
again,
clean it up.
maybe
I
it
mean,
looks a little better, but that would go more to the aesthetics and the property, but that's fine, we're all.
To give them options, if anything else like what you just went through happens. I mean, a lot of people didn't go out unless there was a patio to sit on, you know.
And there was a temporary cure for that, for everybody in town, pretty much.
Okay.
I guess we would let them all come in and encroach on, in setbacks and green
And
area.
parking lots and, there was a lot of, that was our solution,
Temporary,
temporary solution.
but anyway. So, special conditions, I think you had 4 and 1 again?
Well, we didn't yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fifth one.
So there is or is not a fair substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because
Is not. Bill?
I think it's a unique property. I think it is.
Or is?
I do, I agree with Bill.
Jackie?
It is.
Is. Is not, but it's 3-1 so far, so it doesn't matter.
okay, is. The proposed use is or is not a reasonable one?
It's reasonable.
It's reasonable.
For a restaurant to have a patio.
Is.
The use is, yes. Do you have the chairman's sheet, or there's usually 2 sheets, a voting sheet?
Oh, I think I do, probably.
So here's where we have comments or restrictions. So the safety that we were talking about, we'll need to discuss what kind of language you want for the safety concerns.
If anything in particular, or if you're gonna leave it up to the planning board and the fire department, I guess.
Well, yeah, I just threw out, a guardrail, but that would totally disgusting it from a.
No, but
beautiful wall.
bollards I think at first someone said bollards too, which they
Yeah.
put those in front of propane tanks and everything. I mean, they're maybe more durable. Or as Laura and Nick presented, we could leave it to the purview of the other departments, but if we're concerned that
I would make a recommendation. I mean, if we want to put something in, I guess we could. I guess we'd go either way. We could either leave it to them. But I think, my thoughts here were predicated on something for safety happening. I just don't know what's the best choice.
What I'm looking at though now is if they put the ballots or whatever even a guardrail or whatever, now they're taking away from the front of that wall, which is gonna extend out in probably another 2.5, 3 feet. So, now you're gonna be losing probably one, two, three, four, maybe 5 possible parking spots.
Which
Cars will be set back further.
the building department has to address that as well.
Right.
Now, I'm not qualified to say if that wall looks pretty darn sturdy to me. So maybe the recommendation is so that they don't lose the parking, which will create another problem for their permit. You know, that the wall's higher
It's more reinforced.
and more reinforced, you know. So again, I'm not,
I couldn't say.
I couldn't,
So again, if they came in before the wall was built, they could have built those inside the wall.
correct.
make
Well,
this obvious.
maybe the answer is that some of it is, the building department says some of this has to be deconstructed because it has to be constructed to meet X, which they're more qualified more than I
And
am to.
I am also, but I would leave it up to, like you said, the building and the fire department, because that's what they do.
So would you just want an advisory statement asking them to evaluate it? I mean, presumably, they always do anyway, but
For the sake
that
of
we
the
do
public.
have a concern about it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe
that probably
that's the
would
way to
make
go,
sense.
to ensure that it's, safe for the public and protected from cars as best, you can't protect everything, but, reasonably protected.
Nick, if they were to put, if this was a propane tank and they were putting bollards in front of it, would there be a regulation on what size and shape and what they have to look like?
The regulations on the gas tanks just say that they have to be protected by bollards. They don't go into the specifics of it. Something like this, they would have to have some kind of engineering. That they would have to have it designed by an engineer or somebody who has the expertise to sign off saying that would be appropriate, that would protect them.
So that would be something that the planning board would enact at that point.
That's something that they would explore.
Okay. So our comments about the safety must be there in order to, it's on the record that we're all concerned about safety and the patrons, out there, and how close the cars are. Do we put our comment on our voting sheet anyways, just to ensure that it is very clear that all of us are concerned about the safety?
You can put that in there so that they're aware of your concerns, but primarily, this whole case right now was just about the percentage of green space that they're eliminating.
I would still want to put that in,
I do as well.
just make sure we're.
Because the amount of green space that was eliminated, regardless of how much was eliminated, is causing concern about safety because the general public can now possibly infringe on an area where patrons are just conversing.
Or they can step over it and after having a couple beverages and.
Well, that's why I was thinking a taller wall, but. because-
Whatever you guys would like.
And if I can just,
Again, it's the public. If nobody was out there, if they didn't have a table out there, but he said he was gonna have a guitar player or people just waiting to get in, that's the concern. If they, no mittens, no allowance of it, then
So
it's just a buffer for the.
obviously, we're in no point to give expert advice, but if we want to mention our concerns, obviously it's been stated, but that doesn't mean anybody ever saw it or heard it or read the
Right.
minutes, so.
Right.
If we wanted variance, would put it in there.
Did you have a suggestion,
well,
Laura?
I just wanted to just, I guess, give some guidance to the board that if you're saying you have criteria 1 and 2, we talk about safety. So if the board's saying there's no safety, so I feel like you're contradicting each other. So I'm just saying for a sound decision, you you have criteria 1 and 2 that you talked about, that, you know, there were safety concerns, but we're going to address them at the end, and we're going to put something in there that address our safety concerns. But it sounds like you're not doing it, so, but you're still going for 1 and 2 to be, have a affirmative decision for that. So it's just, as far as the sound decision, you got to kind of, maybe want to backtrack and talk about the safety concerns again, just to make sure that you're good with the safety concerns, or put, because just giving an advisory comment to the planning board really has no teeth in it. So just, I just am struggling to understand the analysis of the board right now, as far as if it's going forward, if it's going to get challenged, that you have safety concerns. So if you do, then in theory, you couldn't grant 1 and 2, because there's safety concerns there. But if you have safety concerns and you're going to address them as part of your condition, that would make for a sound decision. So I'm just struggling with the analysis of the board, so I'm just recommending that you may want to give that a little bit more thought as to how you want to handle that. And I also just want to add one comment, just to address something, Neil, that you said about the variance. If the variance is granted and they go to the planning board for approval, and they do have to request waivers because they have non-conforming issues already, such as parking, I think it might be wise for the board to say, if they grant the ZBA decision right here, that it's conditioned on them receiving planning board approval. Because
Oh,
the-
absolutely.
Right, because the worst case is, if you grant it and you don't make that condition, and the planning board says, no, we're not going to give you site plan approval because you, for whatever reason, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, then what do they do? So just kind of give that a little bit more thought as well.
So do we all understand where that's coming from, 1 and 2? I think that was where I was having trouble and struggling with 1 and 2. However, if we've kind of talked about it, then I guess the overlying thing would be the subject to planning board approval.
Go with that.
Okay.
Unless you guys want to revisit 1 and 2, or you're good there. Doesn't matter, again, just for clarity.
You know, so, not that we can turn back time, but if they had come to us with that picture of, this is what's existing and we want to do this, that's where I'm trying to analyze what we're dealing with today. So if they had come before us, before this wall was put up, what was there prior, I would have said, oh my gosh, it's just so unsafe, and you've got an open patio out here. You know, not even with the roof on it, but just you have patrons, you have tables out there, and it's this flat area with just a few dead bushes, and the cars don't even have anything to stop them at all. It's just flat. If they had come before us, my opinion would, and it's non-conforming, it's very hard, that whole strip is hard anyways. Would my answers have been the same? And I think that's why I'm answering that, 1 and 2 for safety, because there's an improvement here for something that was already pre-existing and allowed to be there. So, I don't know, that's the only reason why, I guess, that conflict, because I know that if they had come to us before, we would have seen how inadequate of a situation they had anyways with that open patio.
Well, and I know we've sort of gone through all of them at the stage, and I guess we could re-explore. I mean, if you think of what Laura said and you sort of analyze that, would we have said, come back and tell us what you could do? Maybe that's what we would have done, to make sure this is safe. I mean, I'm just trying to think of it's hard to go back and think of
Well,
what.
they would have asked for the variance first and still gone back to the planning board, so the steps would have still been the
But I
same.
mean, if there were no planning board, and we might have said we feel uncomfortable with the safety structure here.
But we have the planning, we only have the ordinances in which to guide us. The planning board then is the muscle to make sure that the safety concerns are met. That's not under our preview.
Well, that would have been in front of the planning board anyway, once the structure went up. Is that correct? Nick? Is it correct that because of the structure that went up, this would have been under, even if this wasn't, any of this wasn't in front of us, it would have went in front of the planning board?
They were instructed that if they were going to expand their use, then they'd have to go before the planning board. They would have to bring the site plan into compliance.
Thank you, Nick.
So, but again, if they come here, would they have gone there first, or would they have come here? The variance.
Well, presuming, it depends on where in the process.
So
if-
Nick, they received the permit to put the roof on. Was that by planning board granting? No?
The planning board looked at it,
Yeah.
and they advised them not to expand beyond the existing concrete patio
Which they didn't
until they put that on.
until that small wall area got put
Now
up.
they've
Okay.
expanded beyond it, yes.
Okay. So that's the linchpin, was just this. So,
All right, so at least the planning board's involved now after the fact, kind of late, but
Again, my point was simply that if they'd come to us, you know how we say, we don't know where the sign is, remember, we've had things like that. Would we have said, we want you to show us what you're gonna do to make sure this is safe for patrons? Is that, do we wanna back out of this and say, come back and explain to us what steps you're taking to make this safe?
oh, have them go before the planning board first, is what you're saying?
No, or,
They can.
no, but we could say we wouldn't grant the variance unless we are.
unless you had some engineering
Right. exactly.
information or
I mean,
statement.
that's the other way to do it. You know, we're far into this discussion already. That's another way to go. I mean,
I'm not qualified to whether or not it's, if they brought me back plans, I would rely on the planning board and the fire department and all the other departments to look at that, even if it was brought, come back and tell us how you're gonna, it may not be good enough, I don't know the standards for
No,
cars.
right, but that's when we would request engineering documentation. We do that for lots
done
of
that.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
We do that for workforce housing, is this a reasonable thing? Does everybody need granite and this and that, and what's, is that? So we're allowed to ask for that, but I mean, it's kind of late at this point where we're at, but
Right.
short of, maybe as Mitch says, maybe we should get some kind of evaluation if there's more should be done on that, or let the planning board look at it, because now it will be in front of them, but.
So, if that wall wasn't built and they just left it the way it was, they wouldn't be in front of us right now.
Correct.
They were told that.
But wouldn't tell that, but that would create less safety, or at least the same amount of safety, right?
A big liability for the
A
property owner.
huge liability, yeah.
But they wouldn't need a variance regardless, the liability issue hasn't changed.
No. But their exposure to potential harm and patron unsafety and, safety concerns.
So Laura, I guess the question is, could we at this stage pull out and say we want to get some sort of engineering report as opposed to?
Right, you could continue the case and ask the applicant to provide some type of engineering analysis as far as the structure of the wall, impact that it could take, resistance.
And then at that time, if we grant the variance, then that whole packet would then go to the planning board.
Right, that would be material that would be
That would
available.
meet material for the planning
Planning
board
board
to
that they,
also
I'm
preview.
sure they would submit as part of their application process.
Yeah. Would everyone feel better on that?
I think I do. Bill?
Yeah, because now that it's coming out, it's just, this little wall was done after the fact that they were told, and this is what's stopping the variance.
So after reviewing all this, then your question and your determinations on 1 and 2, is that basically where we're at?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
just,
so.
for
'Cause
clarity,
My determination was based strictly on safety, not that if this wasn't here, we wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be in front of us, and safety wouldn't be the issue right now.
What would be the motion here? If we wanted to do that?
Well, there's no real motion. We would ask the applicant to provide some kind of engineering documentation to the safety of the wall or
Or steps they could take?
or what, I guess, they have some kind of an engineering evaluation of if that's safe enough in this kind of a situation. I mean, it's all there and clear, the cars are right there.
Right. I
Somebody should be able to come up with that, a civil engineer or somebody.
I don't know how you feel.
That would be good, because then we could open it back up to the applicant, get us that information, and then
Right. I
it would
think
answer
that's
all
the-
the safety concerns.
I think that's the way to do
Because Laura made a good point,
Teetering.
we're conflicting in our answers for 1 and 2 because of safety, and we're addressing it at the end.
it. Right. I think that's a good recommendation.
Okay.
All right, so we'd like further information, so we'll come out of deliberations?
I agree.
We good? So based on what you've heard us go through, we're back out of deliberations. We would like some more information from an engineer capable and on the safety, how safe the wall is, and what would be recommended if this was a brand-new project starting from scratch with the same kind of setup and setback.
Okay, we have been working with an engineer. We'll speak to that engineer and see what he can provide. You know, I guess one thing I'll say is going on record, I mean, if we're off to site plan review in front of the planning board, I mean, it's my understanding, fire department, everybody's got to inspect this thing anyway. And if they were to say, hey, you got to re-secure it, or put something behind it, or put something in front of it, you know. then
Well, I
so
don't
be
know
it.
that any of them are the engineers that would be qualified to make the engineering decision of a design from scratch. Maybe they are, I don't know what licenses they hold.
Like I said, I just want to go on record saying that, but we'll talk to our engineer, we'll get you
Right.
something.
Okay.
So is it clear what we're looking for? We're looking at the safety and
You want some sort of safety analysis of what has been built, I'm assuming.
for the cars and the traffic that's in that lot, yeah.
Or do we also want them, if, I guess if they're gonna give us a safety analysis and it's not particularly good, then they'll give us some recommendations as to what they plan to do, or is that more planning board?
Well, I think if the engineer comes back and says it needs to be 2.5 feet thick, then they're probably gonna build it 2.5 feet thick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Again, we're just trying to keep it safe. I mean, it's,
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Now, we just want to get input from the applicant if they want to be continued to next month, or if they would need maybe another month in addition to get that information to you.
We'd have to talk to our engineer about that. I guess I can be in touch with you.
so we'll presume it's going for 1 month, and if you need more, then you will let Laura and the department know? Is that fine?
Does it make sense then to defer the second case as well, or?
I would think so,
We
but
have to ask them.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
well, I guess maybe not. I don't know. On the second case,
Yeah, so the second case,
well, so do
Well,
we
first
want
of
to
all, I
wait? or-
think we have to I have to make a motion on this one to
Right.
close it. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the applicant come back with further engineer specifications on the wall and its safety concerns that we've discussed. And request that they come back to us on the,
That's
meeting
the next
for-
month.
yeah,
Do you know what next month's date is?
Yep, it is November 17th, I believe. November 17th.
to continue this case to November 17th, so the applicant has that amount of time in which to get that information.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? My vote putting that on here?
Yes.
Well, it's usually we don't. I guess we do.
You need a break, my friend?
And if the board thinks it's wise to hear them both at the same time, you could continue them.
I can't hear you,
said, if
Laura.
the board thinks it's wise to continue the second case as well, so you have everything together all at once, you have that available to you as well.
And so would make that on the next case, the continuation motion?
Correct.
You need the file?
So, I forgot, Mitch has to read it for my, so to continue in November for engineering review. I think we typically read that in, don't we? The motion, the vote,
Yeah, you usually read that in, right?
the clerk does, yeah. If you can read it.
In case number 07-21-2021-2, property address 103 Nashua Road, motion was voted on to continue to November 17, 2021, pending engineering review and approval, 5-0, that was granted.
So the second case, how does the board feel about hearing it? Would you rather wait until this is resolved?
My opinion is it's about the roll downs, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
So, I mean, I think we should wait till the next meeting.
Anybody else's
I
input?
agree.
Any thoughts?
What do they think?
Well, I'm sure they'd love to get it out of the way, but
I mean,
Get it in the front of
we
the
would,
board now.
but that said, if it's going to be more agreeable to you all, we'll address it when we come back.
what do you think? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue case number 7-21-2021-3 to the November 17th meeting date.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. Think you can have
Do I have to do a voting sheet on that one?
I'll be here, Mike, like I said, my
Okay.
pension negotiations, my contract negotiations.
Oh, actually, could you read this now or no?
No, I probably shouldn't.
Okay.
Oh, so to say about that.
Yep.
Mitch, if you could read that, that's the motion vote for the second case. I believe.
Great, case number 07-21-2021-3, 103 Nashua Road. We voted 5-0 to continue to November 17th, 2021, to line up with case 07-21-2021-2.
Thank you. Oh, look,
Good job.
strangers are back.
Hey, wasn't very far.
I saw you out there.
Please, I'm happy.
Ready for the
Is
next one?
everybody good for the next one? No breaks needed? The next case, please.
Case number 10-20-2021-1, a request for 3 variances from LZO 7.8.b.1 to alter an existing non-conforming sign without losing its pre-existing status. 2, LZO 7.6.d.3.b.2 to allow 3 wall signs where only 2 are permitted. And 3, LZO 7.6.d.3.b.I to allow 75.78 square feet of signage where wall signs where only 50 square feet are allowed. 66 Nashua Road, map 7, lot 40-4, zone C1, Midwest Convenience / Sunoco applicant and the Matarazzo Family Trust owner.
Who will be presenting?
Good evening, my name is Carolyn Parker, 3 Lorien Ave, Worcester, Massachusetts. I was in front of you guys in 2019 for this same location, and it was to add the LED to the price sign. So I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but it's pretty much the same sign in the same location. It's just that the gas station is going from a Speedway to a Sunoco. So we're maintaining the same square footage, the same location. We're just trying to put Sunoco up there, LED price sign, and then the name of the store. The store is Rebel. Right, so I went by the property today. I want to do this first, and then we'll talk about some other issues we might have had, because I think this could be, approved quickly, and then we'll go into the other issues we have as far as the canopy and stuff like that. So, same location, same setback, same as when I was here 2 years ago. It was approved. Now we're just changing it from Speedway to a Sunoco, and in order to get approval, I need to come here because it's a pre-existing non-conforming sign. We do not want to go for a variance and try to get a setback from you, because then you could turn around and tell us to put it in the parking lot, which we can't. So we're choosing to go this route. Any questions?
So let's, for the record, you really do need to walk through the 5 points.
Okey-dokey. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Granting the variance would not be contrary because the sign is a pre-existing sign that has been in the same location for over 40 years. We are only proposing to rebrand the freestanding sign since the site is going from a Speedway to a Sunoco, and we will add the convenience store name Rebel to the sign by reducing the LED price panel size. The location, height, and overall square footage of the sign will remain as is. As for the addition of the Rebel, well, I won't read that because that's my other thing. So that's that. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed if the variance were granted. The spirit of the ordinance would be observed because the current use, a gas station and convenience store, is an allowed use in the commercial 1 zone. The variance for the freestanding sign is because we are a pre-existing non-conforming sign. We are not changing anything about the sign that has not been previously approved by the board, just the brand of the gasoline and the color of the sign faces. As for the addition, and then I won't read that. Substantial justice is done. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because you are allowing them to maintain the exact location, height, and square footage of the sign. Just allowing them to rebrand from Speedway to Sunoco and to add the name of the convenience store to the freestanding sign. We are also reducing the height of the LED price sign letters from 14 inches to 12 inches. The value of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. There would be no decrease in the value since the existing sign is already in existence, and we are only rebranding and proposing to add and I won't read that. Literal reinforcement. The proposed use is a reasonable one because the subject convenience store opened in 1980, 41 years ago. The Board of Adjustment has on several occasions over the intervening years reviewed Speedway Sunoco's plans to upgrade its facility and has granted special permits and variances for other site improvements. The subject variance does not conflict with the general public purpose of the zoning ordinance and continues to permit a reasonable use gas station and convenience store. The granting of the requested variance poses no adverse impact to the health, safety, and general welfare of the community.
Questions from the board?
So, I know we've all been here a long time, but our regs do say
you lose your legal nonconforming status if the sign is altered in any way. So although you are sort of speaking offhandedly about what you're doing, you are changing the sign. And so there is a need to meet all this criteria, and I don't see anything that you suggested that shows, owing to the special conditions of this property, that distinguish it from the others in the area, that we should allow it. So hit me.
So you're not, say that again?
So I'm just asking, what is the special conditions of this property that make it
The
different
special
from the
conditions
others?
of the property is
Should
that
allow.
our property starts further in from the road, about 40 feet. So to meet this 15-foot setback would put the freestanding sign in the driveway, which is where the cars drive through to get in and out of the gas station. And that, so that's the special, yeah. A lot of, like, the 7-Eleven is right on the main road, where we have the, you know, our property is further back from the road, therefore not allowing us to have the 15-foot setback.
Anything else from the board?
The standing sign, it's not moving, you're just changing, right?
Right, we're just refacing it. It's staying in the same footing, same location.
No, I know, it's, I'm looking at all three pictures, so I'm just trying
Let me,
to get it.
where, the last time we did a variance in 2019, was it to 7.8, or was it a different, do you know, Brendan?
That was
It was,
electronic.
It was, I think, the
It was
same.
To add the LEDs.
What- Did it reference the fact that it was a 7.8 existing sign, or was it the movable number thing, you know, issue?
It was movable numbers
They
in
took a job
2019.
away and made it digital.
Yeah, I mean, sort of following up your thought, like when I mean, maybe that should have been under 7.8 as well, if it's a pre-existing non-conforming, but I agree, I don't see the sign is altered in any way in structure or copy, except for not, for changeable sign. It's almost, the spirit of it is, you can't change it, you know? When I read this, I thought about the Citgo sign in, you know, Fenway, that, you know, if you make it a mobile sign, it's not a Citgo sign. And then I'm not sure that that's a previous
I
non-existing
think she
sign.
answered it, so
Okay.
I just needed something in the record that was showing why it was different than the other properties.
Anything else from the board? Nick, so if the name changes from Rebel to Joe's Convenience Store, and they come back, they come back here again for this variance? Or if it changed from Sunoco to something else?
The other way would be to get a variance to get my setback at 2 feet, or whatever it would be from the property line, instead of the 15 feet back. But then if I get denied for that, you could make me move the sign. So.
Yeah, no, and we're here on what's in front of us.
Then we would never have to
No.
come back, because then it would be a sign that we could just keep changing, you know what I'm saying?
No, what I'm looking at is when I look at this sign compared to the pre-existing sign, because you had, the pre-existing sign had branding on top of Speedway, and then it had the pricing below it, it was kind of clean. Now we're putting the pricing above, we're going to Sunoco above it, or Ultra Tech, or whatever that is. And then we're also putting another, we're losing the signage for the pricing, and we're adding another, the Rebel brand, which
Well, I could explain.
looks a little busy to me. I'm just bringing that out because it,
Well, if I can explain, before the gas station was Speedway on the top, and because we're on a corner lot, you can take the two signs, wall signs, and split them up. But you allow the Speedway on the front of the on the front of the canopy, and then you allowed a Speedway on the side of the building. So before, the Speedway was Speedway, it wasn't like Mobile and then Mobile Mart, you know what I'm saying? So if it was, say this did have a Mobile Mart, and it was a mobile, you would have Mobile Mart, you know what I mean? So you would have, a normal gas station would have, you know, the gas, the name
yeah,
of the
but you're in a
store.
non-conforming sign here, and again, I'm saying it looks busy, and it looks cluttered, to me, is what I look at. And then I see the next sign's gonna be Rebel on the building.
Yeah, problem might not be.
That was just a statement.
Okay.
Kids are gonna be confused on which way E goes, but other than that, I think
Not good for schooling. Anything else from the board? anyone in the crowd in favor wishing to speak? Come up to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
My name's Matt Goyette. I think it seems pretty reasonable to me. We're just swapping out the signage. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else in this audience? Any letters?
I don't believe so.
Anyone in the audience opposed or with questions? No letters? Back to the board?
Can we get that $2.79 a gallon back?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Well, maybe not. Foreseeable future.
That's why the pricing is getting smaller and the signage is getting.
Okay, back to the board?
So this is just for that sign, right? Not
Correct.
the- not
Correct,
rebel
not the
in
other ones.
middle yet,
They're
not
kind
the
of a
other one yet,
different
Okay.
bird.
Kind of agree with you on the numbers look smaller with that rebel.
They
And the
are
clutter.
small. We have to make room for the river.
If I can I speak still?
Sure.
So what's happening is, we got a Sunoco on the front of the canopy. We got that by accident because apparently you guys count the whole fascia of the canopy as square footage. So say, for instance, I was supposed to come to you for 300 square feet of signage, even though my Sunoco is 25 square feet. It was just an, between Libby from the building department, there was a problem. So then I went, because I thought I could get another sign on the other side, because I'm on the two sides, I was going for a Sunoco diamond on the other side of the canopy. I got denied for that sign that I wanted on the other side of the canopy, because I was told that now that sign is really 90 square feet and not the 23.75 that I thought I was getting. So when we come down to the Rebel part of this, it might have to be withdrawn, because I don't have that second sign, so I'm not really getting a third sign yet. So I think I'm gonna have to come back in front of you to get the Sunoco on the end and then try for this third sign. So to get the Rebel up on this freestanding sign is important to them because they will not have it anywhere else on the property.
So, Nick, the whole canopy is considered a sign? I don't think that's accurate, is it? Isn't it the rectangle with the letters in it?
No,
No.
no.
Isn't that-
The canopy, where the sign is mounted on it, that's in our zoning regulation, 7.5.B. It states, when signs are incorporated into canopies or awnings, the entire panel containing the signed copy is counted as the sign face area.
Is that new, is that a new revision?
No,
No, because we always drew a square box around them. Or a box, if you will.
if it's incorporated, and if your canopy is, say, if it was painted all white, and you had just the sign, different color, completely differentiated from the rest of that canopy face, then that would be just that. But if you incorporate it into it, if it's colored, you have a color scheme, so that it blends into that canopy face, then the whole canopy face is part of the sign.
So in
We
other
don't,
words.
we don't have a picture of that here.
Yeah, you should.
So that would make every canopy, unless it was white, come in front of you for a variance because you're asking for 400
No,
square
no, I
feet.
understand that, but the Speedway, all we have a picture of is the Speedway. What used to be there, I presume.
They came in 2015 to get that.
Is this before us right now, or are we just talking?
Well, I'm just trying to say why I need the Rebel on the freestanding sign.
I was
That's
just trying
fine.
to entertain that thought, although it is a different one. But we could hold, we'll go back to this one at hand. I was trying to understand why it needed to be there, because it looks busy and cluttery to me. Anything else from the board?
Yeah. I just had a question, where it's Rebel on the building now?
There is nothing on the building, it's white.
Okay.
That's proposed.
So when it was Speedway, there was nothing.
There was a
nothing on the-
speedway on the side where that other street is. But Rebel, see, the Sunoco is Sunoco and Rebel is Rebel, so it's two different people. You know what I mean? Sunoco's leasing the property, but somebody else is doing the convenience store. So they want their name up there.
They're fighting for space, huh?
Right.
Yes, Mitch?
I mean, and I think this is more for us, so if they're changing the sign, I mean, you know, on the one hand, Speedway to Sunoco, they're both gas stations, but doesn't that really just sort of take it out of the, you know, legally pre-existing sign shall immediately lose its legal pre-existing status if the sign is altered in any way in structure or copy?
Right, and that's why they're here.
happening here, but it feels like,
That's why she's asking for a variance.
I guess, but it feels so,
Wrong?
maybe that's it. Like, you know, because pre-existing, you feel like that's, if you keep it the way it was, you're great, and if not, you know, and maybe that's, you can look at it from a variance
But
perspective.
the argument is
then
she's literally just changing copy.
That's what it says. But why would we ever turn anyone down to change?
If that sign was set back 15 feet, I wouldn't have to be here, and I could put,
Right, but it's not, so,
no, I know.
and you're right, the theory is we should be getting them to be non-conforming, but to the point, there's nowhere else to put it, so the copy, yeah, we get a lot of these, and we vote different ways depending on it. I think penny fence was one that went years ago, the other one,
Any sense?
well, now to whatever it is. But I understand, it says that needs to conform, but if there's no way for it to conform,
Right. So I guess the answer is if there's no way for it to conform, then we look at the variance if there's a way to. It just, it feels weird to me to say if it's non-conforming and this is what happens, why I would ever say to somebody, well, you lose your pre-existing status, just, because you're just changing copy, and then do we really read out the meaning of 7.8B1?
well, there have been instances where there's room to make it good.
Okay.
But again, if we're gonna change a non-conforming sign and let it, to me, look cluttered is just my thought, but anyway.
That's just related,
Anything else from the board? We'll go to 5 points on this one?
Granting the variance would or would not be contrary to the public interest because?
I would say would not.
Agree?
I agree.
so I would agree.
So this is, number one's the character is more than the safety, is that number one?
Correct.
And that's where I bring up my clutter.
Well, we're in Gasoline Alley there, so.
No, it's the sign to me just looks like, that's all right. And this is what happens, you get 4 people wanting to be on the sign. So anyway, would or would not be? Where were you at?
I've
sorry.
got 3, 4 would not, 5 would nots, right? Brandon, you were.
Well,
would
we're-
not?
I would
Did you
not.
weigh in?
Actually, who's voting?
I think it's just, it's
well-
Bill.
The 5.
Bill, the permanent members, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Permanent?
What's
For
the
the
word?
rest of your life.
Full member?
Would not.
All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 would nots.
I think it's cluttery. I think it would. So you got 4 to 0.
So the would not alter the character of the neighborhood, is that our reasoning?
Correct.
Okay.
We're doing is changing copy.
Should change the ordinance.
Correct.
We can't.
That's right.
Well, I mean, the town should.
Yes.
Not us personally.
Not us personally.
Yeah.
2, the spirit of the ordinance would or would not be observed because?
I would say would.
I would say would.
Would.
Would. Bill?
Plastic.
No issues with health.
Reasoning?
No issues with health, safety, and welfare. Sign's not moving, staying where it was.
Granting the variance would or would not do substantial justice because?
Say would.
That's right, I'm just,
I agree.
well, no, I think that's gonna change because this is altering this line, right?
This is,
It's
Excess.
all right, excess is, I think, square footage, but we'll catch up with that. Go ahead,
Okay,
keep doing what
that's
you're
yours.
doing, you know what I
Okay.
mean?
granting the variance would or would not do substantial justice, I'm sorry? Would.
Would.
Would,
Okay. Reasoning?
Cost of the sign would be greater.
change of ownership, I mean,
Gain to the public.
For the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties would or would not be diminished?
Would not.
Would not. Same character of the neighborhood?
That it is.
no real change other than,
Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of variance would result in unnecessary hardship because there is or is not a fair substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because.
well, she didn't really answer the part one. Are you
You
on
did,
part
I
one?
specifically asked her that question. That's why I
The
called
the 40 foot, the no fair and substantial relationship is because it was not enough setback?
it. Or else would they, if they're going to move the sign, they'll be in the middle of the,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's the only property like that, I agree with, is not.
it's not in the paperwork, which again is why I asked her to.
No, yeah, and I would just read it because I think it's going to be used for all three. Okay.
Is not, is not, okay. Bill? Is not. And due to, unique configuration, is that, okay. The proposed use is or is not a reasonable one? Is. Signs are reasonable? Any comments or restrictions?
Typically, we put in there that they can't be moving, flashing, and all that stuff. Do we inherit that from the last variance? Not really, right?
Well, it is moving.
No,
The other part of it?
the electronic signs, I guess. So, Nick or Laura, we've already approved a electronic sign there, so we're not really concerned about that. It's just a change of copy. All right, thank you.
I don't think we need anything on there.
I don't have any.
No, do you have anything, conditions or anything?
Bill, do you? Conditions or anything?
No, as long, it's, like you said, as long as it stays the same from the sign now, no flashing, no running, no scrolling. And that goes with the,
But that's already there under the
right,
thing.
right.
So this was actually
yeah,
to
I'm good.
alter the sign?
I'm gonna change it.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to point out.
Thank you.
So,
And then I'm gonna do this one, excess
yeah, so,
square footage. Okay,
I'm gonna trade the voting sheet.
perfect.
No, you don't have to change it. It's only because you wrote on that one. These
Okay.
ones we can just swap.
Okay.
You follow me?
Yep. I initialed it because I scratched it out.
Okay, no conditions, any motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the variance for case number 10/2021-1 on the first variance for LZO 7.8.B.1 to alter an existing nonconforming sign without losing its pre-existing status.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, what, no, I'm sorry,
Just
Suzanne.
alter to say why we're allowing it, because they met the 5 criteria.
Mr. Chair, to accept the request to grant the variance as it meets the 5 criteria of law.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Aye. What was it? Did that because of what? Oh, no, what did she say? Oh, because it complied. What was she put in because it met the criteria? Was that in your motion?
Motion of met the criteria of 5 points of law.
Which one's next on
So the
hit
next one,
parade? So that
allow
was-
3 wall signs.
Before we even get going on that, I think I'm gonna have to withdraw without prejudice because I haven't gotten my second wall sign. Because I was told, when I went to get a permit for it, I was told that I have to come in for a variance because it's 90 square feet, because you take the whole length of the canopy times the height, and therefore, they would not give me the sign. So I don't think I can ask for a third one when I don't have a second one. So I'm gonna have to come back with both of them and then see how that goes.
One was granted.
Well, I'm gonna wait till all 3 are done. We're done all 3?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
so you're looking for a continuation? Is that what you're asking for?
I think
Well,
she's
not a
withdrawing.
continuation, because I have to refile, because I have to file for the other sign that's not part of this.
So she wants to withdraw.
She's gonna
Correct.
withdraw the other 2.
If you're still going to go for the 3 wall signs, right, that's still going to be a variance, I would recommend to save you a couple of dollars to continue it. And then when you have the other one ready, you
I
can
can add it to it?
but you would have to file again, but I'm just trying to save you another $60 for the application fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think I need to withdraw without
Okay,
prejudice.
that's fine.
Whatever you'd
Because-
like. Yeah,
Because
that's fair.
I mean, so what, continue that and then have a separate one? And
Right.
then,
But you might end up on different dates?
Well, I'm just trying to save you a couple of dollars, that's all
Yeah,
I'm trying to do,
it's-
so.
it's not my money, no, I'm looking.
Your ride from Worcester and back is probably
Yeah,
more than, yeah.
we'll see if I come back, no, I'm looking.
There'll be a snowstorm, you watch.
So you're looking,
I've been up here in snowstorms,
I
it's
know,
awesome.
I remember, yeah.
so you're looking for a continuation, withdrawal. Okay, so
I'm gonna withdraw without prejudice and refile for both of them at the same time,
So
Mr.
that's 2 and 3 that you're talking about there?
the second and third.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like
Unless,
to,
unless this nice gentleman over here wants to give me that Sunoco one on the edge, and then we can finish this whole thing.
no.
so,
well.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the withdrawal for case number 10/20/2021, the second and the third.
You don't need a motion for the
Oh,
withdrawal?
okay. Okay.
So in case number 10/20/2021-1, request for 3 variances. The first one from LZO 7.8.B.1 to alter an existing non-conforming sign without losing its pre-existing status. That request for variance was granted. With respect to number 2, LZO 7.6.D.3.B.2, to allow 3 wall signs where only 2 are permitted, and number 3, LZO 7.6.D.3.B.1, to allow 75.78 square footage of signage where for wall signs where only 50 square feet are allowed. Those 2 requests for variances were withdrawn.
Thank you. Do I need to put anything on these part 2 and 3, or just leave it alone?
On the inside.
We still good for the next one?
Yep.
Anybody need a break?
Nope.
We good?
Bill, you still quit smoking, right?
No, come on.
Did he ever quit smoking?
He did, he did.
He did.
Are we ready for the next one then?
Right.
Very proud of you there.
There you go. Case number 10-20-2021-2, a request for variance from LZO 4.2.1.3.C.2 to encroach 6.5 feet into the side setback for the construction of a 2-story garage, 23 Mammoth Road, map 1, lot 56-1, zoned AR1, Felipe and Kirsten Figueredo, owners and applicants.
Who will be presenting?
Hello, my name is Felipe Figueredo from 23 Mammoth Road in Londonderry.
And your address, please?
23 Mammoth Road,
Sorry, I didn't hear
Londonderry.
that. Thank you. And so you can do a general statement or just go right to the 5 points, whatever you'd like to do. I mean,
Thank
you
you.
always have to go to the 5 points, but you can do a kind of a general summary if you want.
I'm going to go straight to the 5 points, please. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I'm requesting a variance of 6.5 feet encroachment on the left side setback ordinance. The immediate abutting property on that side is a condo association, which has more than the minimum required setback on that adjoining side. The addition of a proposed garage will not add any additional noise, headlights facing their building, block air, or sunlight to the residents at the condo association. The location of the proposed garage is at the end of our current driveway and where we currently park our vehicles. Presently, a natural privacy line exists between the properties of greenery, trees, which will remain untouched. The garage will be constructed keeping with the character of the home and neighborhood. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. In granting the variance, there will still be a setback of 8.5 feet on my side, and there's a setback of 30 feet on the condos association side. The ordinance of 15 feet on both sides would give 30 feet total between the properties, which would still be the case here. Our 2 adjoining sides would not be crowded, and the existing natural buffer on my side would remain, which would protect privacy to both sides. Substantial justice is done. An approval of my variance request does not pose a loss to the general public, such as a denial to my variance request does not grant the general public any gain. The values of surrounding property are not diminished. 7 out of the 8 abutting properties have garages. Therefore, a variance would not be diminishing their property values, but bringing my property to the level of my neighbors. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the properties, because the proposed garage would be on the left side of my property because a driveway presently exists on that side. The front door to the existing home also faces the left side, and because of the land grading, the home's front door is approximately 10 feet higher than the existing driveway. The proposed garage with second floor room would connect to the existing home with a mudroom. It would be unnecessary hardship to attempt to change the driveway to the right side of the property, as there are no doors on that side of the home. It would require extensive land disturbance and would place a driveway right next to the driveway of the adjoining neighbor on that side, the right side. There is less space to work with between house and property line on the right side, along with a septic tank and leach field run across the front of the property towards the right side. Our driveway being on a very busy road, has been in its present location on the property years before I bought it, and therefore all emergency responders and postal services have present knowledge of its location. The proposed use is a reasonable one. Due to the land grading, differences between the driveway and the home, as well as the location of the existing driveway and the fact that we currently park our vehicles in the exact spot where the proposed garage would exist, our use is a reasonable one. This proposed use would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
Questions from the board? Who owns the natural greenery buffer there? You or the condos or whatever those are next to you?
Well, I planted a few of them until I later found out it's not my property. But the two larger ones, the two large maples, which are present in one of the images where it shows a picture of down the steps, were there when I purchased the place, and they are right on the property line.
Okay, so
Those two
you
there,
weren't
correct.
referring to the,
Those two that you have the hand or cursor on. Oh, sorry. I thought that was you.
no, that's right. No, I thought the evergreens that were, looked to be more on the condo, or is that a condo association? I'm not sure what that is.
Yes, that is a condo association, and
Looked to be
the,
more on their property, so I'm just trying to figure out what you were referring to for the green.
yes. So the abrevieties, I planted those approximately 2 years after I bought the property, just for a little more privacy. And because when they drive in, the lights shine right into our windows. But then I later realized that that's not my property.
And it looks like you have a garage under now when you go up there, if you took a right and went under?
So there's a carport. It has the house side, and then one side is complete. The far side, when you pull in, so where your headlights would face, is not a complete wall. It's scribed to a stone wall that's existing there to help block grade that's behind it, which doesn't deter inclement weather from coming in. So it still snows in, water still comes in. But yes, we do park from there time to time.
Anything else from the board?
The fence that's showing here, is that your neighbor's fence?
No, that's my fence.
That's your fence?
Yep. So when I went to apply for the building permit for the garage, is when they advised me to get the property line marked since it was so close. And that's when I realized that a portion of the fence is also on the association's property.
So the association, we haven't read it in yet, but their letter is concerned that they have wells near where your proposed garage. Do you know anything about that?
They have wells?
Yes.
No.
Has anyone from the association talked to you about the proposed garage?
No.
Without anybody being here, I'm not sure how we're gonna know where these wells are.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it, but pose an environmental hazard. What environmental hazard if they're in the
Well, their
garage?
Is-
argument, I believe, is
can-
because the garage is there and cars leak and,
But if they're not there, the garage cars are gonna leak outside.
yeah. But they don't park as close as they would if it's in the garage.
Well, is there any sort of environmental disturbance when you excavate and pour cement for a garage? I mean, you know, this isn't automatic, does that?
The condos,
Yeah, no, I read that letter, and I was thinking about the same thing, that they're parking near that anyway. But then I wondered
See
if the
this?
building of a garage created a problem.
Do I want to see it?
yeah.
Please.
Since I just assumed they would have sent it to you. You can take that, that's fine.
So, you know, I just didn't know if the actual building of the garage would create a potential problem, whereas parking the cars outside may or may not.
I didn't. It's certainly,
I just don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know more?
Can,
I wouldn't think.
can
that
I
would
speak
be-
about these wells?
yeah. if you
The
know.
wells are, that they're talking about are behind. They're on the back property. Yes. So there's an open field back there. Oops.
So are those all their carports? carports? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, no, those are the actual condos, and they have a drive-in garage under each
Underneath.
unit. But I'm pretty sure the wells they're mentioning are in that back open field, which is kind of straight behind the white tent I have out there. There's an area there where there's wells. I don't know if we can see it. See those squares? I'm pretty sure those are the wells they're referencing.
Far away.
So the width of your mudroom is 16.5 feet, and you're asking for 6.5 feet? Could you make it 10 feet and comply with the setback?
So the difference in grade is approximately 10 feet from the front door to the current driveway. That's approximately 17 steps. So the steps would come, because my house the front door faces my backyard. So the steps would come down and then hit a landing and then take a left-hand turn. That's why the width is at 16 feet, to allow for a landing at the bottom of the steps. Does that make sense?
It's your answer, I mean.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, no, that makes. Anybody else with questions?
So this wasn't just you didn't pick this because you liked how it looked. There was a reason why it's the size it is, the garage?
Yes, yeah. The doors are 10 feet doors, which is a little bigger than normal, but my truck is 9 feet wide with the mirrors.
So you wouldn't get through a normal garage door then?
Exactly. Normal garage door is 8 foot.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience in favor or like to speak? Anyone in the audience opposed or with questions?
Just this letter.
So now would be the letter.
From Edith P. Salvo, 17 Oak Ridge Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire, 03053, October 11th, 2021 rather, to the Londonderry Zoning Board. As Deputy Director of the Oak Ridge Manor Board of Directors, I'm writing in opposition to the request for variance noted above at 23 Mammoth Road for a 2-story garage. This property abuts to our open field area containing the wells for our 100-unit property. A 2-story garage that close to the property line could certainly pose an environmental hazard to the immediate area, resulting in contamination of our vital water facilities. On behalf of myself and my fellow homeowners, I respectfully request this application for variance be denied. Sincerely, Edith P. Salvo, Deputy Director, Oak Ridge Manor Board of Directors.
Did you want to speak to that letter, or do you feel you have with the location of the wells?
I'm not 100% sure, but since I've been there since 2013, that's 7-8 years. I know the Richard who lives at the abutting condo there, and from conversations I've had with him, I'm almost certain that field, which would be right to the left of the proposed garage, is their septic. So I don't think their wells are on that side. I'm almost certain I've seen their wells back in that field. My son plays back there with friends of his, so I have been back there to retrieve my son.
Anything else from the board?
Nick, are you able to actually verify for us where the wells are?
I can do some research into it, and yeah. I can
So
come
we
back
don't
to you.
have it on?
I don't have it here, no.
Okay.
Oak Ridge Manor.
As a general rule, there's no setback from wells for a garage, or a residential garage, are there? Other than your side setback?
Normally, if it's a new building, a new well going in, they want 75 feet away from a property line or a road or a septic system.
I thought it was a septic system, but.
No, they want you to keep it from a property line also because You don't have any control over what your
Yeah,
neighbor's
but
gonna
the
be
planning
doing.
board overrules that all the time and gives them waivers.
They can if you get a waiver, yes.
Well,
Yeah, that's what, I'm just saying, normally, if it's a new project you're building, they want to see it 75 feet from a property line. But that was built a long time ago. God knows where the wells are.
Thank you.
so I don't know how that would impact it, other than he could verify it. Would you make it conditional? Is that what your thought was?
It's a concern, and,
Yeah, no, I'm just looking for clarity of what we're,
yeah.
that's fine, we can think about it.
Could I
as we
say
go.
one more thing?
I guess what bothers me is we have these meetings so that people, especially when they have a concern of drinking water, and they're not even here to help substantiate this letter. So I'm having a problem
Yeah.
with looking at this. The person couldn't even show up so that we could ask them questions, where are these wells for your drinking water? I'd be here.
Well, it's not just one person, it's the
Management.
whole.
It's the whole community, all the units. I mean, gee whiz.
No, yeah, I fully expected them to be here based on, I do, the only thing I would say is that when I read, section 4.2, drinking, water quality preservation is one of the objectives of this. So, it would make me concerned if there's a risk there, but I agree. Why not come?
Why not
Send
come?
one
What if
representative.
it's 100 feet away? I don't know.
I don't know
Well,
either.
she just measured it out, and it was like 268, if the blocks that we thought were the wells, but we don't
So
actually.
you would make it, okay, we could think about it. I guess you could make it conditional on being the 75-foot setback. I don't know if you're that concerned, but that's fine. I mean, it's a valid
Well, I
point.
mean-
It's a valid point.
I agree.
Somebody took the time to write the letter, and it's important. I take drinking water as a very high priority. And yet, we don't even have a representative, not even the one that wrote the letter, someone here to say, hey, this is where it's located, we're truly concerned. So I just question the validity of the letter and the wells. And it's raising the flag about drinking water for all these 100 units. It's a concern, but what if it's not really a valid, the wells are far away? We don't have enough information from the concerned recipient of this letter, or the concerned person that wrote it.
We don't even know if the concern is substantiated.
Correct.
And Nick's saying he could check that, so we could make that a condition.
Well, letters went out to everybody there too, right? All the residents?
Well, if we're concerned about the safety, it shouldn't matter if someone showed up or not. It should matter
we send one
if we
notice to
can
the
easily confirm it, then we can confirm it.
The letters went to the,
Looks like there's quite a few letters to the condominium on Oak Ridge Drive.
5 of them.
So the statute provides if a butter is a condo association, you have to either mail it to everyone in the condo association or mail it to the offices of the condo associations. That's probably why you're seeing the 5 is the offices.
And that seems a bit